All right, instructional video on working with some of the color medium for your graffiti art tag design. So I went ahead and made an example. One of the things I already did is I drew my letters in kind of a graffiti style and then put them into 1-point perspective. The vanishing point below the letters and in the center. I took some time to outline in black Sharpie, and hopefully you can see that depending on if you use a thin or a thick marker, that visual line weight, the thicker it is, the more it really stands out. So it's up to you if you want to have it all like in a thinner outline, thicker, or a combination of the two. Now, one of the most important things I think about getting these, designs to create the illusion that they pop off of the page is working with highlights and shadows, meaning maybe the front of the letters is lighter, but the sides are darker, which is something that we practiced with the last project, but using graphite. So let's say that I want my letter A to stand out differently, more of thinking about that 3D effect. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply some value. This is a color option, working with colored pencil. Now, if this wasn't outlined and I just applied the red to the front of my letter and then to the sides and the bottom, it would all just end up blending in. And we've also learned that in real life, forms, things that take up space, light is hitting them differently. So one side of a form is going to have less light or more light than the other sides. So if you want to get that 3D effect, you're going to have to work with those highlights and shadows. So if this is, kind of blend that out a little bit. Also, I do have blenders. I'm just kind of using a white, giving it kind of a pink tone. You want to add other colors and kind of have it transition to another color, you can do that. If I wanted to, for example, warm up the red, I could add yellow to it, which is what I'm doing now too. So you can have it fade into other colors. It's a nice thing about colored pencils is you can blend them and really, build up layers to get a solid color. And if you're adding colored pencil, you're gonna wanna do the Sharpie work or the marker work before, because if you go and put the colored pencil on there, it's gonna wanna resist the paper because it has nothing to kind of soak into. So just be aware of that. Okay, I kind of warmed that up with the yellow. Maybe it gets a little bit darker, here. This is where I didn't add any yellow. Like I could go and have it fade into like a purple if I wanted. I could have that blend on my letters, have color fading if I wanted to darken it. So for the sides, I could pick a completely different color altogether and that will read differently. Maybe you wanted the letter to be all red tones. You don't want to change that up. And you could darken this. You could use purple, you can use blue, you can also use black. That's traditionally what I use. And I pay attention to the direction of my mark. A lot of times I'll create like a hatch mark. We learned that last project. Kind of hatch towards the direction of the vanishing point. And then I can blend it out with my original color. That will just naturally darken it. I'm going to show an example here where maybe I choose a completely different color altogether. Let's see. I wish my green was, let's see how bright this is. Whoop. Not as bright as I wanted it, but still pretty bright. maybe I decide to do completely different color altogether, which is, you know, an option as well. This altogether would not be my final design. This is just for example purposes, but I wasn't supposed to color that. I was supposed to color that. Oops. Just showing you how having different colors can already give you that 3D effect that you see, you know, the front and then the side. So that's an option too. I like working with marker a lot, but you know, colored pencil is fun too. There's different types of markers out there. I grabbed some Bic markers that are similar to Sharpies. So for example, what I like is you get really rich color right away. And it matters the direction of your lines. So if I wanted this to fade into another color, let's say I'm going to slowly have it go yellow. You're to see some of this, but I'm going to have it fade. I want it to look a little more gradual since this is really strong. It's a big jump. But yes, you can transition from one color to the next. This is considered a pattern, you know, because that's one of the requirements to have 3 patterns. I keep wanting to say 4, but I think it's 3. That was one of the requirements that I set. So anything that gets repeated, which is a pattern, I will count towards that. Paint drips, those are a pattern. Color fades, polka dots, stripes, any type of line designs. Maybe kind of darken it a little bit with some red here. I don't like that line. I have a different set of markers that I got over Christmas time, and I'll show you the difference with those in just a second. Another thing I like to do that I did in my design is, instead of, you know, adding, I guess, colored pencil or even marker, I like to use the ultra thin Sharpie and just kind of do like a hatch line, and I feel like that's how I get that to look darker. And I have these lines kind of go towards the vanishing point just to keep them a little consistent. I've always liked, ends up putting like a texture or pattern on it, and then it also reads more 3D because it gives it that shadow effect. So let's talk about some other markers so you guys can see the difference. I haven't tested all these out, so it could look different than what the cap looks like. But let's say I work with some blues, so I'm just pulling different blues out of my pack. These are art markers, used a lot for illustration. I really like these. I've been trying out some different brands, but what's cool about them is a lot of times they have different tips. So here's like a chiseled tip for, you know, broader areas. And then you can also get like a finer point or even more like a brush. And it kind of goes on kind of like watercolors, so the colors like in the marker form. And usually they're either water-based or alcohol-based. So I'm trying to remember which one it is, but you can add water to it and actually, you know, blend it out. Let's see, it's just been a while, so I'm trying to remember which ones you can apply some water to. But I like it because it goes on like a brush, but you can apply multiple layers and get it darker. So it, you know, your brush strokes, your marks matter. But I like how you get kind of like a softer application and you just get a little more variety of colors sometimes. Already thinking about that paint drip down here. I'll leave a little highlight on it. Kind of like it's bleeding down. I think these are a nice investment. Got these from Amazon. You can buy like a big 30, 40, 50 pack for a little bit less than $1 for each of them. But I've also seen some brands where they have them as expensive as $5 for each one. So some of these are really expensive. So no matter what you decide, you know, I think like the ones that I have here were less than $1 for each one. And, you know, I bought them in a pack, but great to start out so that you can kind of see the difference. All right, I thought that was gonna be a little lighter than what I thought. So I like to test out the markers too before I use them. Let's see about this. Whoa, it's really dark. Okay, so let's try that. Have it kind of fade. So we're going down kind of similar to the Bic markers that I used. Some packs give you like a clear marker that you can like blend it. Let's see if they gave me one of those in this pack. Colorless Blender. Here it is. Let's see what it does. Colorless Blender. I have these in colored pencils too. Kind of helps you blend it a little bit. Since these are alcohol based, it's kind of helping you pull up the color pigment, and you can kind of fade it. So it doesn't mean you have to have these to be successful in this design project, but just wanting to make you aware of what's out there. I also have watercolor paints that you can use a brush and get very similar effects to this, and you just have to control the color pigment, which I can show you guys how to use the watercolor if students are interested in that. And you can get definitely very similar effects with the watercolor paints. You can use acrylics, those are thicker. So the good and bad thing about acrylics is they are thicker, but they can cover up your Sharpie lines a lot. So sometimes you may end up having to go back if you want to bring that outline back. You know, you may have to do that with the acrylic paints because it's so thick. Another option, I've seen students work with the design, their tag design here, and then create a stencil to cover it up so that they paint the background and then splatter paint or add other materials over top. And so I have tracing paper that you can lay, kind of tape down, and trace your design, the outer edges, and then cut it out. I have X-Acto knives or, you know, scissors, but then you can use some artist tape to hold it down, and then it kind of masks your design without getting paint or other materials on it. So that's an option too if you need that later. All right, hopefully this was helpful. We'll see.